So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this area of the pot with plaster. So I'm just shaping that up to the shape of the pot, and I'm going to turn over the corners so I've got a little support, and I'm not going to have enough, so what I'm going to do is I'm just squeezing some plasticine here to hold it onto the pot, as it doesn't really stick to the pot. The plasticine's a little greasy, so which is a good thing when we put plaster down. And I'm just going to give that some support underneath. It's going to need a bit more than that. I'm just giving the this here some support underneath the pot so as it doesn't drop down on me when I'm going to put the plaster on. There we go. I'm going to do this near the sink, as mixing plaster up's rather a messy business. I'm just checking that the plasticine is right tight onto the pot so that the plaster doesn't run underneath. So we'll just mix a little. Don't think we need very much. A little plaster up. There's a kind of crucial thing about mixing plaster. You need to take a spoonful and then tap it in gently so as it sinks to the bottom. And you keep doing that until the plaster has absorbed all the water. If you try and stir it in, it makes a lot of bubbles, and the plaster's quite weak with all the bubbles. I usually put a little more plaster in than I need, as I tend to work really quite fast with plaster. I'm just stirring it gently. Always stir it the same direction, and you stir air bubbles out to the top. I don't know if you can see them coming to the top. And you stir it quite gently. I guess just the same way as making pastry and cakes, it's important to be quite gentle with it. And then I'm going to give it a tap on the bench to get the air bubbles out. And the air bubbles all come up to the top. So it's got to a kind of creamy constituency now. So what I'm going to do is take a brush and just put some of this plaster on the edges of the pot. If you do it when the plaster's liquid, you get a very good, it fills all the little cracks and crannies, and the plaster doesn't really stick to the pot. You just get a sort of mechanical adhesion just by fitting up tight. I mean, you can snap it off quite easily and it comes away. So I've almost covered, I think, the whole area now. I'm just working a little of the liquid plaster down in this big crack. The main thing is to get rid of any surplus plaster from brushes and everything. It's just thickening up now, and I need it just a little thicker. But it's pretty good now, so we can just the problem is if the plaster is too liquid, it just runs all over everything. And it's a bit of a business trying to get plaster off the surface of the pot. You can see the plaster's already starting to form little lumps. It's setting up already. I guess the water's a little cold and that slows down the setting. If you use warm water, it speeds it up a little. But it's at a sort of nice creamy stage now. In fact, I think I'm going to be able to finish putting the plaster on without it setting up any more than this. Usually put a little excess of plaster on, that is, have it up above the edges of the pot, because plaster, believe it or not, sinks when it dries. It shrinks quite a lot actually. On this thickness it will sink down a couple of millimeters. That's it. And we just leave that set, not to fiddle about with it anymore. And you can see the plaster's got getting quite thick now. So we have to leave that an hour or so till it's firmed up. Mainly because trying to cut it down when it's too soft, there's a danger that it will break out. But if we can leave it till it's like a very firm cheddar cheese, an old cheddar cheese, and then I can take the plasticine off and then trim all this down to the shape of the pot. It only takes a minute or two. But it's dangerous to do it when it's wet at this stage. That area of wet plaster is quite heavy, and if I fiddle about trying to shape it, which I might be able to do at this stage, the problem is pushing and pulling. The plasticine can easily drop away and the whole thing's a mess, and you start again. So I really prefer to leave it at this stage.